call the meeting to order. And we will start off with public or union comment. I would like to welcome Paula Brown Weinstock, our new union representative. I don't know if you have any comments, but now is the opportunity.
I don't, other than we're all excited for the ceremony tonight, graduation tomorrow.
Excellent. Hopefully everyone has had the opportunity to review the meeting minutes from last month in their packet. I would ask for a sponsor to approve them, trustee Banzi Magadam, and a second.
Sure.
Trustee Winston, any discussion or changes? All in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Just a brief chairman's report, some things that'll be coming up for us. Tonight, I need to select a nominating committee for the election of our officers for next year. I don't know, I know a number of you have served on it before. I can see by a show of hands who might be interested in participating again. Trustee Lancio, trustee Kazi, and I need one more. How about trustee Peck?
Sure.
Perfect. Choose wisely, my friends. We will nominate in June and vote in July
When in June?
at our June meeting.
Oh, okay.
You will be receiving links for the biennial board self-evaluation and the annual evaluation of the president. I am usually the worst at getting back in timely manner, but in a perfect world, we'll get everything submitted before our June meeting so that it can be discussed. Then,
We get the form way before, then we.
correct, and we'll make sure that there are reminders set.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
And just want to remind everyone that tonight, immediately preceding the meeting, is the college award ceremony happening at the Raiders Den. Hopefully, most of you or all of you can join us. And tomorrow night is graduation, starts at 7 p.m. If trustees could be here by 5:45, 6 o'clock to don our gowns and get ready for the procession, that would be great. We're expecting a good crowd and a nice warm sunny day and lots of happy graduates. So we'll move on to the first.
Here in this room or
We start out here,
in this room?
and we'll move on to the president's report.
Minutes. Okay. Just in a few minutes, we're going to be asking you to take action on the budget proposal that was sent out to you earlier and that we talked about in our April meeting. Just wanted to offer up a few highlights of the budget. The budget that we're going to put in front of you tonight is $15,110,828. That's a 2.4% increase from last year's budget. The FTE funding, as we talked about, is remaining essentially level. Now that we know what the state budget looks like, the tuition rate that we're proposing is a $192 increase for the full year for resident students and $792 for non-resident students. And we're looking to apply about $771,000 fund balance.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
The non-resident, meaning, foreign student?
Out of state and.
I am foreign student. When I read, the foreign student pay more than.
Correct. So historically, our international students and out-of-state students paid double tuition.
Yeah.
And then I want to say 4 years ago or so, we tried an experiment where we lowered it to the same in-state tuition level. As we look at what our peers are doing and what our revenue needs are, we felt that we could increase the share, the out-of-state share, modestly. We actually like to raise it more, but in order to stay competitive with our sister institutions, we're proposing a little less than $800 a year increase for non-resident tuition.
Thank you.
Welcome. When we look at non-personnel expenses, they're relatively flat. You'll notice that we've got some slight increases in things like maintenance and repairs. As you know, that's been an issue lately, and with the aging physical plant, that's something that we have to plan for. Like I said, not a whole lot of changes here. The biggest change is in personnel expenses. We'll talk about that in a second. So once again, the lion's share of our budget is salaries and benefits. So it's about 80% of our budget. And then there's everything else. So again, on the revenue side, the FTE aid is essentially flat. The tuition, when you look at the budget packet, you'll see that the tuition revenue is projected to be increased slightly. No change in the chargeback formula. And we are going to ask our sponsor to contribute $200,000 more. So that'd be $100,000 from each county. And as I said a few minutes ago, applying about $770,000 for fund balance. So how does that stack up to last year? Again, relatively flat, slight increase in tuition revenue, and slight increases in sponsor contributions. So this is what our revenue looks like. It's supposed to be go from 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. It is a little more balanced this year. Students are going to be shouldering about 41%. State aid is still, less than 1/3. And, the county share, which they get to count, our fund balance is part of their share, is a little less than 30%. Fill all those parts in. So, it's a slight improvement in terms of spreading the load across the various revenue sources. But still not the 1/3, 1/3.
Greg, can I ask one question?
You absolutely can.
Excuse me. It's, in rough terms, it's after aid for our students. How much do they usually end up contributing to retail price? Do they end up on an average overall, it's like 70% of retail or 50% of retail or? Any idea?
Yeah, I can't give you a precise answer on that.
That's
I mean, we could certainly get that information.
That's
to
okay.
you. I mean, if you look at the majority of our students receive some level of financial aid. And what the average award is, somebody here knows that, it just doesn't happen to be me.
That's perfectly fine. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
It would have been interesting if you did whip that up, but I didn't expect it.
I'd be making it up.
Yes,
So,
thank you. Sorry.
no problem. And we'll have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the budget and under finance if you'd like to. The other issue that I wanted to just highlight and Paula can chime in at any point if she'd like is in your packet this month, and you've seen this before, but the college recently had a college-wide vote to change the shared governance structure. And that was approved, and now it moves to you for your consideration. And we'll ask you to take action at your June meeting. But we had a committee that was formed 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Yeah. The Senate does its annual assessment, and in 2018, 2019, they said, hey, it's time to look at the structure and see if it still fits us and changes are necessary. We formed a blue ribbon committee. Paul was the chair of that committee, and they spent a couple of academic years doing some research and putting together a proposal for a revised shared governance structure. So the proposal is to kind of phase this in if the trustees approve it. And in year one, the current Senate structure would be disassembled, and we would move to what we're calling the college assembly. And the college assembly is essentially a body of the whole for those in administration and in the faculty, with some representation from the other constituent groups. So where before we had the present model is a representative model where there are senators that represent various constituent groups. This is, in part, a return to a model we had before, which was a body of the whole, but this adds some representation from groups that weren't represented in that particular structure. Is that a fair way to say that? So again, phasing it in year one, attendance is now required. It was previously a required meeting before the Senate, and then when we went to a representative model, that changed. So this would be a required meeting. The executive committee combined with the cabinet committee and have an assembly executive committee. College assembly members are going to vote on all governance matters presented, excluding curriculum. Just the teaching faculty would vote on those matters. All proposals for the formation of committees would be discussed by the executive committee. Changes in the articles of governance would be voted on during the assembly versus waiting to the way it works now is any changes that you want to affect upon the Senate. There's a one time a year vote, and then it goes into effect the next year. This would change that. And then election timing would change it a little bit. So this is the composition that's proposed for the College Assembly Executive Committee. It's the chair, vice chair, and secretary of the assembly, 2 members at large from the assembly, 3 members from the leadership team, and a student senate association president. Then in year 2, we would look to change the standing committee compositions and charges of those committees and implement those and conduct elections for those. Committee structures are going to change slightly and combine in some cases. In the assessment committee, really just all that's changing is some of the membership. Curriculum and academic policies and standards committee, that's a name change, just to kind of clarify what that committee does. It's not a new committee, it's just giving it a new title and changing ever so slightly the composition of that committee as well. Institutional Advancement and Policy Committee, this is the combination of 2 different committees and altering the charge of that committee. So you'll have, again, just a change in who's represented and what they're going to do. Those are 2 committees that by themselves, once they had a lack of work, and so it made sense to combine forces and give them a greater sense of purpose. Student life, again, most of this is just changing who belongs to the student life committee. So we're happy to answer any questions about that at this point, or think about it, and we can discuss it more fully next month. Going to discuss it more fully next month. And I'll have some more to share during the personnel report.
So the College Senate report is in your packets. We'll move on to the student trustee report with trustees.
Back up a little bit. It's, do we feel comfortable voting on the changes? I feel comfortable voting on the changes. I would sponsor that if somebody did. Second, they have to make a motion to approve. I thought it was an excellent plan.
Just to, I mean, you haven't seen the actual articles.
Okay,
I mean, it probably makes more sense to have the actual document in front of you for you.
that's fine.
And our plan is to have that to you in your June packet.
Didn't we get the checkbook?
We got the outline.
Yeah.
Just now.
You didn't get the actual articles document, the articles of governance bylaws for that. But they were still finishing those up and we'll.
A little more detail. Oh.
I will say that I thought the structure was excellent,
Yes.
so.
But, you know, again, it's your prerogative to.
We'll just wait to get complete that.
Okay, I'll turn it over to me then. Good evening, everybody. Nice to be back once again. In terms of the Student Senate Association meeting, this was our final Student Senate Association meeting with the current folks that were in their positions before. So we had our re-elections, and I'm going to go through all of those, each of our elected folks and positions that were filled, and also give them a little bit of information to each of you about what they're going to do for the student senate. So first, I just want to go over some quick financial information regarding the month of May. So in terms of overall budget, we do not have finalized numbers yet for all of the clubs across the board, but it is projected that we are probably going to have an overall budget across all of the clubs for next year, probably down about $5,000 to $6,000 after the use of all expenses for usually the bigger clubs spend more money, and that was the case this year. 3 of our biggest clubs spent a few $1,000s that was allocated by the student senate, so that will be a little bit lesser next year. In terms of the student senate budget overall, we have a little over $2,500 left going into next year. We did have a couple motions to approve, and this was the final amounts after those motions were approved. The first motion that was approved was a piano donation that was going to be in the X kitchen. That was $425. The expenses were accrued due to a moving fee from Boston Spa to FMCC. Piano itself was free, but the moving fee was $425. And then free ice cream on campus, which is like a fan favorite for all of the students, was the allocations for the funds for that was $512. And as it says also right here, it's very, very popular, and there was overwhelming amounts of support for that as well. So that was very cool to see for the end of the year. That is all I have for the financial information. In terms of overall revenue and overall spending, it really kind of just fell flat as well. There really wasn't much movement in terms of any of those things. That may change as some clubs are starting to develop and some clubs are getting bigger, with some programs starting to also get more enrollment. So that will be something to watch for next year. So now I'm going to go into each of the positions that were filled. There is only one position that has not been filled yet, and ironically, that is mine. My position still is empty at this point. I have been in contact with Leanne Pratt, and I'm going to be working with her in the near future to try to see if I can find somebody and help her with filling that spot. Each position, there was sort of like a biography given for each position to prospective people that were running for this position to see if there would be something that they'd be interested in doing. So some information about what the student trustee does was given to potential candidates, but we have not turned up somebody just yet. Next, our chair. So the name of the student that was elected for the chair is Massa Masri. I have mentioned her before at these conferences. She attended board meetings in high school. She is the current president of the Phi Beta Kappa chapter, and she's also part of CSTEP as well. And she stated that she wants to continue to be involved on campus and be able to help as many people as possible. And she's very excited to be given this opportunity to be the chair of the Student Senate Association. Then we have our Student Senate co-chair, which is essentially like the almost like the vice president of the Student Senate Association. That was given to Joe Tapon. And then for our secretary, the name of the student that was elected for secretary was Emma Peck. And she wanted to add that she used to be a secretary on board meetings in high school, and that she is very involved on campus and tutors in the Commons, and is very excited to be a part of the Student Senate as the secretary. And our final elected position was the Student Senate treasurer, and the name of the student that was elected is, I'm going to try to say this the best I can. I told him I'm not great with names. Is Tsubasa Jino. He is an international student from Japan. He is in for business administration, and he would like to take this opportunity to bolster his career and get experience with finances, and also use it as an upstart to try to build his own business in the future. Those are the elected positions that we have filled for the upcoming next semester. And as I said before, I'll be working with Mrs. Pratt moving forward to try to find somebody to fill the spot for student trustee in the coming months. In terms of additional business, this was relatively a brief meeting. I just wanted to take a moment to read some of the names that were mentioned, because without these folks, we would not be able to do what we were able to do this year, and also any year leading up to this one. So I would just like to take a moment to recognize these names and those that helped us along the way this year. So Lori Lazinski, who is the Phi Beta Kappa advisor, Michael McDarby, who is the Student Senate advisor and the Fencing Club advisor as well, Robin DeVito, Student Senate advisor, ABLE Club advisor, co-advisor of the We All Unite Club, and co-advisor of the Dance Club, John Armstrong, the Criminal Justice Club advisor, and Audrey Eggleston, who is also involved in TRIO and EOP. And we just want to also, once again, say a big thank you to Leanne Pratt and anybody else and any other staff members, and also students as well who participated and made this as great a year as it was. As I said over and over again, in comparison to last year, the amount of folks that we had attend the meetings, the participation in said meetings, and also the equality in club involvement from so many different clubs was really, really nice to see. This was a great year, and I was very happy to be a part of it. In terms of financial information, I'll have finalized information for financials for the next meeting. But in terms of that concludes my report, unless there are any questions.
Thank you. We'll move on to the foundation report with trustee Rasimagana.
Thank you. I'm going to start with FMCC Foundation 29th Annual Golf Tournament. It's going to be held in Parks Run in Johnstown next week, Thursday. And so far we have 36 foursomes and more than 60 people sponsor and volunteer for this event to make it a success. And the proceed from this event is going to go use for the high school, in a college and high school scholarship. Over 100 scholarship each year they are giving to the students, and the distribution of the pamphlet and the name of the sponsor is going to be for next meeting. We're going to distribute the pamphlet.
Okay, excuse me, I didn't get them ahead of time, so, just. Sorry,
It is, okay, it is, yes, thank
Sorry to
you.
interrupt.
There is that. Fort Plain Museum, their annual event, they are gonna hold it in our gallery. And they're gonna show the all the artifacts and memorabilia. They're gonna display it between Friday, June 9th and until June 11th. Next item, foundation is still fundraising for the multi-purpose third athletic field. This is ongoing fundraising, as everybody knows previously that they put it on your YouTube, on the social media, as well as foundation submit the proposal to Congresswoman Stefanik, Senator Gillibrand, and Senator Schumer. The proposal was posted on the list of Senator Gillibrand's submitted project, which is this is the first stage and is a very good news. The second stage, this list is going to go to Senate Appropriation Committee. They're going to take a look at this application and they will post it on the all U.S. senators that each senator selected some project. It would be late July. And then we know Senator Gillibrand is going to be advocate for us, but the decision is that to make a decision, final decision is Senate Appropriation Committee. They're going to make it a final choice, and then they're going to send it to the Congress to be voted on. This list is they are authorized for that project, but not funded yet. And the last stage, if they choose to fund us, that would be great. It would be toward the late December. Next item, foundation will help assist with the effort of upgrading the cybersecurity lab. The other item, the Fifth Friday series, is going to take place in Fraser room, June 30th. The topic is not clear yet. We sent proposal to Johnston Hospital Foundation and request $75,000 for operating CNA lab. We are waiting to hear from them. Foundation, as always, support RadTech white coat, and which they give it to them May 15, and tomorrow before the graduation, a member of foundation, they're gonna pin everybody before the graduation. And with that, I conclude my report. If there's any question I can answer, or if I cannot, Mrs. Lanzi is here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Committee report. We'll start with finance with trustee Winston.
Thank you. The expense graphs are in your packet. There's two graphs presented, one that provides expense and budget data by major function, and another that provides expense and budget data by contracted services category. The graphs compare fiscal year 2021-22 to fiscal year 22-23. The expense summary budget versus actual for the period of 9/1/22 to 4/30/23 is 67% of the fiscal year. To date, expenses and encumbrances are 60% of the budget. The expense detailed by department provides by department a detailed comparison of our expenses and encumbrances in the budget for the same period. Again, 67% of the fiscal year. Finance statements for the period of 9/1/22 to 3/31/23, which is 58% of the fiscal year. Revenue includes billing activity through 3/31/23 for the fall 22, winter 23, and spring 23 semesters. This represents 103.4% of our tuition budget, while expenses incurred represent 7 months or 52.8% of the budget. The budget transfers, contracts, and grant reports are included in the packet as well. We do have a transfer motion to vote on this evening. The Board of Trustees approve all budget transfers between budgetary departments that exceed $5,000 and all transfers that affect full-time salary accounts. Budget transfers arise primarily from the need to redistribute budget funding to cover expenses. This budget transfer for 2022-23 is needed to cover expenses related to student activity salaries. The president recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the 2022-23 budget transfer listed on the attached page. Present that in the form of a motion.
Second, trustee Grazi-Magada. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I can't say. So I can't say, so okay, very
Yeah, I don't see it there. I do, but there's, the other two aren't fine.
This is tuition, no? Program.
So I need most of the.
And
And I need tuition fees.
okay, this is annual budget. So that is fine. And this is tuition. You're welcome.
And for grade.
We go graph.
If I told them.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they said.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Request this time.
The budget, the Board of Trustees approves annually a tuition and fee schedule. The recommended tuition and fee schedule for 2023-24 fiscal years is attached to the packet. The president recommends the Board of Trustees approve the attached tuition and fee schedule effective for the fiscal year September 1, 2023 to August 31st, 2024. Present that in the form of a motion.
Do I have a second for that motion? I'll second it.
I second, but I don't want to keep going. I want to give opportunity to other people.
Any discussion on the motion that was just put on the floor?
Unfortunately, wasn't paying attention, so I'm sorry.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We, you have the third, yes, okay, I thought you were waiting.
The college is required to adopt an annual budget based on projected revenues and expenses. Fulton-Montgomery counties are required to pass resolutions designating their annual level of contributions to the FMCC operating budget and approval of the target budget of the total budget amount. Following approval of the proposed budget by sponsor counties and the Board of Trustees, the budget will be submitted to the SUNY Board of Trustees for approval. The president recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the proposed 2023-24 FMCC budget consisting of $15,110,828 of operating fund revenue and $2,074,160 of grant funds for a total budget for 2023-24 of $17,184,988. Again, presented in the form of a motion.
Second by trustee Gazi, we found that. Any discussion on this motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. We will move on to buildings and grounds with trustee Landry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just have a few things that point out to you in your packet. The science lab phase 3. We're working through the punch list items on the second floor. Labs as we speak, and the 2023-2024 capital projects are in the next round of capital projects being developed, which hopefully includes the campus paving and the replacement or relocation of the electrical gear in the student welcome center as identified as top priorities. The master plan cost study, JMZ, has completed their work on the master plan cost study. Once it's developed, the master plan steering committee will convene to review. That concludes our report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Cardella is unable to join us tonight, so Diana Putnam will provide the academic report.
As with every month, for this entire academic year, there's a significant amount of curriculum that is moving through our governance process, and all of that is detailed in the report. Just some additional highlights. Last month, I presented information on the results of the April 1st EPA section HVAC certification exam, in which 29 attendees were registered, 25 attended, 7 students and 18 community members, which is notable because they already work in the HVAC field, so it helps in terms of networking. The exam consists of 4 levels, core 1, 2, and 3. The tier or level that a technician passes determines if and what types of equipment they can work on in New York State. For example, type 3 is required only for very large institutional and industrial chillers. For a person to work in residential or commercial HVAC, which is most common, the employee must be certified in core 1 and 2. 22 people secured certification of the core exam, 18 secured core 1 and 14 secured core 2, 13 secured core 3. 11 participants secured certification at all levels and are now certified as universal and are able to work in any of the HVAC, both commercial and residential. So it was a big community effort, and I credit Christy Davis and all of her work on this initiative. The BCP team in general was really happy to report that FM received the Municipalities Workforce Grant in the amount of $75,000. This is good timing for our HVAC program. The award period is May 15th, 2023 through June 30th. FM will purchase an electrical control trainer, a controls training system, and a gas-fired heating control board. The BCP team is also in the process of developing a micro-credential as a pathway to the HVAC certificate program. So that program is being relaunched and is doing quite well. Some other highlights: the Nursing Program Advisory Council was held in the Allen House on Tuesday, April 18th. 12 community advisor members attended from Naples Tours, St. Mary's Hospital, Mountain Valley Hospice, and HFM both with CTE. The ASRT has named 8 winners of the Red Radiologic Technology Journal Cover Art Contest. And one of them is the program's own, and that's Kyle Kersley, an alum. And you can see pictures of his artwork on the following pages in the report. Alumni class of 2012, Taylor Hesling, provided lectures for the freshman students on cardiac interventional technology. So it's nice to see the alum, how much the alums stay connected with our program, and when they're out there as professionals, seeing them return to attend trips, to provide lectures, additional experiences, rotations. It's very nice to see. Carlin Lavac, president, Colin Bailey, president-elect, and Chelsea Hutchins, secretary, all serve on the board of the New York State Society of Radiological Sciences. And the NYSSRS was recently named as actually given an award. They were recently awarded national recognition for advocacy, which was a big, actually a significant award for that group that they developed. Let's see, Erica Gower and her early childhood education. And her students, they hosted a book drive to collect gently and used reading materials. Students in her children's literature course used what was gathered to create book boxes to help address the issue of book deserts in our local community. For the project, they needed to identify a site that will somehow help facilitate getting books into the hands of children that may have limited access to reading materials. In human services, Julie Lynn is very busy. Students enrolled in her SOC 235 Professional Ethics in a Diverse Society facilitated an interactive community event, campus event, focused on cultural bias with methods for understanding cultures better. On 4/18/23, Julie's students enrolled in HUS 214 Trauma Informed Care and Catholic Charities staff facilitated an In Their Shoes interactive presentation. Participants were able to learn and engage in the stories of 6 young people faced with concerning dating relationships. They were able to wrestle with difficult decisions while acknowledging red flags along the way. And my final item is a motion to deactivate a couple of programs as part of the college's assessment of academic programs and in consultation with the faculty. The administration has determined that the following programs are no longer viable and should be deactivated due to consistently low enrollment. 0 to less than 2 students per year for both certificates. Students interested in these pathways will have the option to enroll in either individual studies, the AOS program or the certificate, or the AAS and electrical technology program. Following action by the Board of Trustees, the request to deactivate the programs will be forwarded to SUNY and the New York State Education Department. During the 3-year deactivation period, the curriculum and resources associated with the programs will be reviewed by faculty and any appropriate changes will be considered. The recommendation, the president recommends that the Board of Trustees deactivate the following programs: the certificate in automation systems, mechatronics, the certificate in facilities maintenance.
Do I have a sponsor for that motion? Trustee Langiero, second. Trustee Winston. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Salavak is unable to be here this evening, and Jackie Snyder will provide the student affairs report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to share some of the highlights from student affairs. We'd like to start with financial aid. Financial aid office reports 599 FAFSAs and are filed for 23-24, and the packaging has begun. Rebecca Kazakria, the coordinator of our financial aid office, attended the SUNY Financial Aid Conference in Queensbury, where the main conversation focused upon the FAFSA Simplification Act and the changes to the 24-25 FAFSA. These changes include updates to questions, the calculations for families, and the timing of when the FAFSA will be available for students to complete. The launch of this new application will take place in December this year. It's typically launched October 1st and has been since 2016. So this will be a change for families to adjust to, and guidance counselors and school districts. So Becky is planning and preparing accordingly on ways to assist local school districts and families with the new form and how to address the timing that being launched in December. I also wanted to share some financial aid and student costs based on the SESI results that we reviewed previously. And based on your question, Trustee Peck, just a couple of points. 50%, over 50% of students graduate completely debt-free from FMCC, which means 85% of our students have no loan debt whatsoever. More than 80% receive some form of financial aid support, which is totals over $8 million, almost $9 million. And 78% of new students receive grant or scholarship aid. So there isn't one exact dollar amount that students, what the price tag is. It really depends on their FAFSA, what their contribution is, what their financial situation is. But as you can see, we have various ways in which we can meet the needs of the students.
I brought that up only because I was fairly certain, I wouldn't say stronger than that, but I was fairly certain that when we're talking about the third goal, that it's, even though when we look at the retail number that goes in the student cost, I was fairly comfortable thinking that the actual cost of the student is much less, out of pocket is much less than that 1/3. So I think that it's still a very affordable option once students' financial aid pictures in. So it sounds like it's probably in the 20s for actual out of pocket, which that's excellent. I think that is important. So,
Great. I'll move on to our CSTEP program. Our program was well represented at the statewide CSTEP conference on April 14th through the 16th, held at the Sagamore in Bolton Landing. Students and staff attended sessions on leadership, learning styles, STEM research, transfer and internship opportunities, and professional development in the licensed professions. At the conference, students and staff were able to network with other CSTEP programs, share upcoming activities and services, and develop a fuller appreciation for all that is available to CSTEP students who graduate and transfer to four-year institutions. A shout out to our student Megan Hughes, who earned recognition for her second place finish in the annual CSTEP Spades tournament, which I thought maybe might be an acronym for a science program, but it's actually a card game. So she beat out, or at least came in second place. And our STEP team is now complete with the addition of Suzanne Johnson on April 21st. With her addition, the team is planning recruitment after-school programs and Saturday academies for high school students. Suzanne and our STEP director, CSTEP director, Greg Young, presented about the program to school superintendents here on campus from Fulton and Montgomery counties, leading to meetings with Kansas-Harry and Gloversville about expanding STEP into their respective districts. They also met with the principal and guidance counselor from the Greater Johnstown School District to discuss their recruitment efforts to date. And they also met with the Amsterdam School District and students from that program to, as a focus group, to discuss the best ways to re-engage students in that district. And finally, Emily Town has assumed the role of director for the Behavioral Health Workforce Education and Training Program. Emily was instrumental in facilitating the Family Empowerment Grant that ended this month. She's excited to be working with another population of students who need support and services to complete their career goals at FMCC. This summer, she's going to be focusing on the completion of the KSAC learning labs and will continue outreach with our local agencies. With that, I will entertain any questions.
Yeah, can I have one question? It's probably not to be answered tonight, but I was very impressed with the strategy of giving universal acceptance for all the seniors at Mayfield. And I just wonder how the numbers are shaping at that, whether there's been an increase in enrollment from that student body or whether it's too early to see that yet.
So that's been an, excuse me, an ongoing process with Mayfield. Next week, the admissions team is going out to the school to speak with students who haven't fully decided what they want to do, FM or a different institution or right to work. So it's been an ongoing monthly meeting with them. So we don't have the hard number just yet.
Okay.
So it's a work in progress, but you're in May, this is decision month. This is when students are deciding what they want to do, where they want to go. So we expect that this meeting on Tuesday will yield some additional folks.
It would be, I think others of us would find it interesting a little bit further down the road, once those numbers come in the fall, to know how that did work out. Because I think it was an excellent strategy. I thought it was a great pilot. And I hope that the numbers are positive and that can be expanded to some of the other districts. That way, I know it's very staff intensive, but you know, it's one thing that's differentiating FM from other schools that are looking for students too, so.
Agree.
Very well done.
Yeah. Noted, I will be back with more information.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That concludes my report, Madam Chair.
And now diversity, equity, and inclusion with John Von Vliet.
Thank you. All right, I'm stuck with spades. I haven't played spades in a decade. I learned as I first joined the psychiatric center that ancient stars had to play the most therapeutic thing that I think we did there, besides the gardens. It's nice to hear.
Not even we're finding instructions.
New certification, spades. Let's see. Well, me is Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. And, you know, I got doing a little bit more research on that one and I found, nice little talk on being an ally. As we know, we have hate crimes against various groups that have increased over the past several years. It's a meaningful one, and that led into a whole nother thing, being a better human series, which I'm really looking forward to looking at a bit more, because my next piece in here is the Sustainability Officer and Executive Director of Climate Action that has been appointed. And what got me thinking about is, this isn't, with diversity, it's really how we treat each other. But it's also how we treat the environment. So these things are integrated, and I mentioned before the eco-psychology class I put together. That's after a lot of reflection on this. One's not separated from the other. We start to look at environmental justice and the fact that we're going to have about 2 billion people displaced from their homes before the turn of the century, and 15 million, which will come from Florida, by the way. It's a catastrophe. So I like what they're talking about here, but I think they're missing a little bit of the human part. So I'm going to meld this into diversity in the sense of we really have to start to look at how we treat each other on the planet in parallel fashion. All right, how we can do that here, how we can incorporate that here more. Not so sure. Have I mentioned potassium here yet? Well, people, this is a good example. You get up in the morning, and I know none of you said, thank whoever for potassium. Without potassium, you die. You won't survive. And I think that that's the approach that we have to take a look at. Everything's interdependent. Everything has value. Everything has a place. And we need to start to recognize that a bit more. Now, not a couple other workplaces I'm working with don't reduce bullying in them. No, and that's another issue. You know, what we do to intimidate each other, how we prevent people from reaching their full potential. Maybe to changing it to more of a community where we focus on how we enrich each other's lives, which again plays into things like emotional intelligence, which I really emphasize a lot in my classes. I want to see people go out of here and be able to have what I call an informed assertive compassion, be able to engage people in a productive way, and also be able to tell people when to cut it out. That you really need to stop that, which gets us into something else I was looking at this morning, the old diffusion of responsibility. How do we get people, which pairs in with allies, how do we get people to stand up for each other? Rather than just say sort of a willful blindness, it's not my problem, it's not my issue. Back to the costume, okay, it is our issue. Because we do have this interdependent piece, and without everything functioning together, we just really don't exist. So I hope I made a little bit of sense with this. I've told you, I haven't smoked any weed since 1981. I figured all this out sober, just so you're wondering. But it's going through a whole lot of, educating myself about it and thinking, what can we do to create the type of community here where, people's lives are enriched. And I think we do have to include sustainability in there a bit more, because it is just a pressing issue. So anyone ever have any ideas about how we do this? Feel free. I mean, I don't think putting birdhouses out there does it. It's kind of a nice thing to do. We can reduce the mowing, we can do a lot of different things. But if we can somehow infuse this into what we're doing here a bit more, I think it'd be helpful for everybody, and also the ethical thing to do. So that's a little bit on that. Other than that, there's lots of dates coming up. Trying to be mindful about, and Leanne's been great. For all of you, really kind of taking the lead with that, and or yes, not just all awareness about this. But there's actually, a difference between saying it and doing it. So trying to sort of change attitudes and then have the attitudes and behaviors, I think is a real challenge for us at this point. And if we see what's going on in this, country in particular with things like diversity, it's gonna continue to be a challenge. So that's my overview. Any questions?
Thank you. We'll go back to Jack Snyder for a congratulations.
Madam Chair. In your packet this month, there was the agenda of our May 3rd visit with Dr. Cushman Hubcock, our BD liaison from Middle States. Thank you very much to the 4 trustees that came to campus to meet with him. It was a very good visit. It was a full day. As you can see, the agenda was extremely full. He met with many people. It was very positive. He liked the work that we've completed so far as it relates to self-study design. He completed a review of the draft that we had sent him, and he has a few minor suggestions, which we will take into consideration and update that self-study design and forward it on to him. He also asked permission to borrow a couple of our documents to share with other campuses because he was impressed with the work that had been done by our steering committee thus far. The working groups have been identified for each of the standards and the chapters. They all had one meeting prior to the end of the semester and will continue and really jump into the work in the fall. I don't know if any of the trustees have anything else to share about the meeting.
It was very positive.
Mhm.
Didn't ask many hardball questions, a lot of feeling questions. Questions about our roles. I think he was just kind of, in my opinion, he was kind of checking off some boxes. We understood what our responsibilities were and where the lines were.
Well, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate you coming. If there are no further questions, that's my report.
Thank you. You've Dr. Druckenmiller and personnel.
Do that. Good. In addition to your written report, we had recently the opportunity to recognize some of our faculty and staff at last college assembly of the year. And I just want to quickly go through that. It's been